show, Football Diehards. I am with Bobby Gomes. I'm Kyle Dvorchak. Bobby, how did last week treat you?
It was a good week. Definitely did well in cash, did well in tournaments, pretty much cashed everything that I played. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm salty. I swapped off a very nice lineup. Basically, the strategy was get 3 of the dudes who scored 40 points, and after that, it's whatever. I swapped off one of them, but I slammed showdown slates, and showdown slates are easy. So
yeah, wherever you can find an edge, I guess.
Right? Yeah, that's kind of the idea. I think it's an important thing to learn is like you don't have to play every slate, you don't have to play every game. Like if you have edges in certain ways, like better to maximize those than like I don't know. Like I guess my guess would be a ton of people have 0, like very negative EV in the Millie Maker. Like not even just like at present time, but like in theory, given like the largest sample, they'd be so negative EV but still play it. So like just not being that is like important, I guess.
Yeah, like playing kickers on FanDuel. That's a good way to pick them kickers.
If I have time this week, I'm totally playing FanDuel's kicker thing. No, they have the 3. Just literally pick 3 players, and the salary cap is like $7. There's like if you play a $4 player, you're dust. Like there's such an edge on like finding stupid games. But you can't. The thing is like you have no liquidity in that. So like for me, it's easy, but for you playing high volume, there's just not a point.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're just maximizing your pennies, whereas me, like it's like I can actually maximize a percentage, my like accountable percentage. But like important conversation to have. We'll talk about kickers another day. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, we can get into it.
All right. We have the first game. Oh, I guess it's not main slate, so we don't really have to talk about Panthers. We can just hop straight into Bengals versus the Ravens. Ravens are now 12-point favorites at home, 47.5, pretty solid 47.5-point total. I actually kind of like this game. So I think Lamar Jackson is probably a great pivot play off of you have to forego a lot of points, like the shootout potential of the Houston Texans versus Kansas City. But the Ravens have the highest implied team total tied with Kansas City. So I think like an interesting pivot is to go Lamar Jackson. I don't even know if you have to run him back with anybody in his teams. I think you could do so with Tyler Boyd, who could get like we saw the Cooper Kupp 17 target game. He could be in that range because all the receivers on this team suck that aren't named Tyler Boyd. And they pass 70% of the time. So that's kind of where I'm at with this game. It's kind of easy for me to pick out a few plays I like and move on. So like, what's your take on this game?
Same take as you. Lamar Jackson popping really well on models, going up against a Cincinnati defense that's really struggled. I like Lamar. I think also in tournaments, the Bengals D at 1,700. It's something to keep in mind in the slate. Like, we're getting savings with defenses. While it's not much, it's something to consider. The Bengals are one of the defenses priced under 2K. For me, they would be my least favorite, most likely. But
that's what I was going to say too. Like I like playing one of these defenses under 2K, but it's not going to be the Bengals for me.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because I think that's a big part of just like the construction of the slate.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like it's in consideration pretty much no matter which way you're playing, like cash tournament, whatever. So they're not my favorite. They're the least favorite for me of those, the 3, I believe. But I do think it's interesting. We'll have to talk about those more as we go on. So without any further takes, like I think Mark Andrews is a fine play, but like right now he's dealing with an injury. He's not getting like the full complement of snaps. It's basically when he's on the field, he runs a lot of routes, gets a lot of targets like per snap, but he doesn't actually play like that true, like, I don't know, workhorse tight end role, if you want to call it that. Marquise Brown also banged up. Like I'd much rather just run it back with Tyler Boyd and run Lamar Jackson solo.
Yeah, you could definitely do that too. Lamar Jackson's like adding a 4th running back in your cash games. So I never hate rostering Lamar Jackson.
All right, let's move on to the next game. We have the Cleveland Browns, who got annihilated on the Island game on Monday night, I think, versus Seattle. This line has shifted. I probably because this line might have. The line I'm looking at might have come out too early. But now the Seattle Seahawks are 1.5 favorites, 46-point total. Cleveland is at home, but they are home dogs. What do you like? You can kick us off. What do you make of this Cleveland Browns team? Because like they look kind of washed.
So I'm pretty positive Cleveland opened up as a favorite here, correct?
They did open up. I'm not sure if I'm just looking at like a look ahead type
line.
No,
you're right, because now they're +2. When the Virgin line came out, Seattle was +2. I think that's how it was trending, and now this is pretty much the situation. So if you got on that Seattle +2, it was a really good bet early on. In terms of Cleveland, like the offensive line is just terrible. I feel like they're going to force feed Beckham because they just feel like they have to at this point. That's no way to like run an offense on a team, but it works for DFS. So we like Beckham on the Seattle side. I love Russell Wilson, but my favorite play would be Chris Carson. I think he's definitely in play for cash. Tyler Lockett sees a ton of volume in this offense. You can use him in tournaments. He's at a nice price. Will Dissly, 4,900 versus a Cleveland defense. He's not going to be the chalk by any means, but he's in a good spot. He could be a little chalky. I shouldn't say that. It's Wednesday. We have no ownership pretty much at this point, but I don't have any in front of me at least. And then, yeah, it would be pretty much Chris Carson for me, and then Beckham would be the tournament play.
Yeah, if you had ownership in front of you, it probably wouldn't be awfully predictive of what it's going to end up by the end of the week anyway. So yeah, I love, like, Chris Carson is, I don't want to say he's locked for my cash game, but right now, if I build a cash game, you can guarantee he's in it. Saw like 22 and 27 carries in the past 2 games, and we know that Seattle just wants to establish that run so thick. So I think Chris Carson pretty much right now looking like a lock for my cash game lineups. Anything can change, especially if we get news on like a David Johnson or Todd Gurley. But for now, I love him in my cash games. Let's move on to Philly versus the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are 3-point favorites. Pretty meh, 44-point total. Like Dalvin Cook is a 3-point favorite, is a 3-point favorite. It's always in play, especially at home. I'm not like, I don't know. The volume is pretty spread out on Philly. And as a home favorite, I don't think the Vikings are going to throw a lot. So for me, it's kind of like you can play Dalvin Cook if you want, and I'm not like awfully interested. Maybe some tournament plays. Miles Sanders is out of the tournament lineup for me. Now that the coach speak is hyping up Jordan Howard. I don't know if it matters all that much. Like the coach speak was hyping up Miles Sanders at one point and it didn't matter. It's still going to be a committee, but I think like we can pretty much guarantee Jordan Howard will be the 1A in this committee. I don't know. He's not that good.
Yeah. So I think that Minnesota will likely throw more than they'll pass here because Philadelphia is more than they'll run here because Philadelphia is such a passing funnel. So I think Thielen and Diggs are in play for tournaments. It's just relying on Cousins or Mike Zimmer to call pass plays. I don't know if that's like optimal, like at this point. So, for me, like Diggs would be someone this would be the week I'd be on him in tournaments. I think Thielen's definitely in play. And on the Philly side, really love Zach Ertz at 5,400. Minnesota's always struggled to cover tight ends. Zach Ertz is going to get absolutely pummeled with targets by Carson Wentz because Philly can't run the ball either. Like if they're relying on Jordan Howard, good luck. Minnesota's just going to stack the box every time he's in because it's such a tell. So Ertz should be in play for a good target share on this game. I like this game because I think both these teams are going to have to throw a little bit more than what Minnesota definitely. So we'll have to throw more than they have to run, and they're so run heavy. I like this game. I like the over.
I think Adam Thielen in consideration for me, like Stephon Diggs averaging less than 5 targets a game. Like I don't know. It's hard to bet on a get right game where he's going to have 5-6 targets. So for me, Adam Thielen, a fine play as we saw last week. Stephon Diggs, not so much. I think everything else you said there are sharp. Let's move on to maybe one of the more interesting games of the slate. We have Jacksonville versus the Saints. The Jacksonville Jaguars are, 1-point favorites. I believe they're at home. 44-point total, another Met total, but this is actually one I think I like to hit the over. Gardner Minshew is through 5 games is beyond the real deal. Like he is an above average starting level quarterback based on the numbers. I think he's top 5 all time in passing yards through a rookie's first 5 games since didn't even start week 1. And DJ Chark is also the real deal. Getting similar targets to D.D. Westbrook, but the areas behind them are like double or something crazy. So I like them in cash, especially Minshew at 5K flat. I think is fine in cash, especially if we don't get any of the like chalk running backs to open up later in the week. Paying down a quarterback might be a must. So I like him. I like DJ Chark. What are your thoughts on Alvin Kamara? Because that's kind of like Michael Thomas is obviously like always in play. He was so egregiously mispriced and just like crushed it last week. Like he's always in play. I don't know if you're playing him or not, but like my big question is Alvin Kamara. I think he's the more questionable. I'm not sure what to do with him. So what are your takes on Alvin Kamara?
Yeah, right now, Alvin Kamara is not in my cash game. I feel like that could change by the end of the week. I'm just a little nervous about the whole usage total, and with him and Latavius Murray, the other backs in the slate definitely see all the usage, and I'd rather that for my running back than a guy who's splitting carries at the goal line. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think for me, I don't know, it's early in the week. I don't know what my cash game lineup is going to look like, but I do he's a pretty strong consideration for me, given he's actually seeing more work than he saw last season. Right now, he's seeing, I want to say it's a little over 15 carries a game. Last season it was under 13. Seeing about half a target less. These are all in the games with Teddy Bridgewater played versus last season. So his volume has gone up marginally. It's not a huge difference, but I think especially I expect touchdowns have to come. He's had 2 touchdowns in 5 games. Last season, he was averaging more than a touchdown a game. Touchdowns are wonky. They're not awfully predictable. But if they were, if you were to expect someone to be efficient, it would obviously be Alvin Kamara, out of almost any player. So I think he's a fine cash game play. I think this, if I'm betting the over.
I just want to clarify something. I didn't say he wasn't a fine cash game play.
I think when I say fine, I mean I am more on him than you are. So I guess what I mean by fine.
This is actually probably my first time looking at the slate, or second time through. So
you will be able to, depending on when AIM will post, find my cash game and tournament game breakdowns tonight or maybe tomorrow morning. So I have looked at the slate a lot already.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he's. Right now, I'm building cash lineups that I really like with him. I think is he, based on the volume he's getting, he should be priced right up with Dalvin Cooks. I don't care that there's a rushing discrepancy when you can make it up in targets. That's targets that were just significantly more valuable. And it's not he's James White, who just doesn't get carries. And God, I was such a donk for playing him in cash. I hate myself so much. Gotta get that.
He was a bad play in cash with the numbers that backed him up last week after Burkhead was out. And he definitely makes value if it's him catching that Bolden touchdown and not Bolden. So I definitely think it was a process play. I don't think it was.
I don't know. See, I think the point, my kind of sticking point is that he's a wide receiver.
That James White saw last year on the Patriots offense.
He
was at 7,200 at one point on DK. So
no, I get the value play of it. It's, are you playing a wide receiver?
You get it though, because then you got him at 5K this weekend.
49. No, I played him. I understand the value. Do you play wide receivers in your flex and cash? Because that's what he is.
I don't play wide receiver in my flex and cash, but he gets more. That he's not really just that though. I don't think he was that all year last year, and this year Burkhead's been in the mix. You're taking Burkhead out of the mix. Burkhead was out of the mix last year, and he was getting more carries. So you could expect the same thing outside of basically what happened. So going into the week, you could expect the same thing if you had to rely on, we didn't have any other data to rely on.
All right, let's hop into our next game. This is the game of all games this week. We have the Texans versus Kansas City, 54.5 point total. Kansas City are 5-point favorites. Basically the crux of this game is Patrick Mahomes healthy. He injured his ankle, I believe, last week. Didn't look still made some crazy plays, but also looked a bit hobbled at times. Was honestly limping pretty badly at some points in the game. That's sort of, if he's healthy, this game could easily crush the over. If not, I'd be a little bit more concerned. My question is, do you dig back into the Will Fuller well, or for me, honestly, it's pretty DeAndre Hopkins heavy. I still think you just tend, we've talked about it before, when elite players have a few down weeks, regression is typically bound to hit. Either that or they're just done. It's a steep fall off, and there's no reason to expect DeAndre Hopkins is anywhere close to falling off. So for me, I don't know, I'm digging back into the DeAndre Hopkins well. I think he's both in playing cash and tournaments. Will Fuller got the fat price up from 4,500 to 6K. I still think he's a fine play, but I honestly prefer Hopkins. What say you?
Yeah, D-Hop's probably the best wide receiver play on the slate. Everyone's going to chase Fuller last week. I would just go to D-Hop at 7,400. From there, this is an interesting game because the line moved 4 points since the open. So now it's down to -4. But if these KC guys get a full bill of health, I'd pound that KC giving 4 because they're going to absolutely smash this Houston team. Houston's just they start off really slow all the time, and that can't happen in Kansas City if they get behind. That versus a good KC team, a KC team that gets a full bill of health, they'll be in trouble. Yeah, I think Fuller fading him in tournaments is a good leverage play, especially if Kenny Stills is back. I don't know what's the read on Stills. Do we know if he's playing?
No, I think he'll be like a true, like, we don't have much of a lean. I would still kind of tend to say he's probably not going to play. Like, probably, it's like 55% not play.
Well, I hope he plays because then it just like kills Fuller at 6K.
No, I agree. That makes fading Fuller like very viable, like very, I think, plus EV. So I agree with you completely.
That would be a great play if that happens. Like Mahomes, what can we expect? Like if he's like, we really want to get good news on Mahomes. Tyreek, if we get good, if he's playing with a full bill of health, I like him. Kelsey's got to get going eventually at 7K. I think it's interesting going that way in tournaments. If Sammy Watkins is out, you can go back to Pringle. I think Pringle would probably be cash game viable for me in that sense if Watkins sits.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if Watkins and Hill both sit, like he's kind of a must play in cash.
Yeah, and Damian Williams sneakily last week, a really good game. And if you get at 5,700, like he's too cheap, and I would definitely he's going to be someone that goes overlooked situationally here, and I think he's a great play.
No, absolutely. He got over half the team snaps at running back. They were losing, so it wasn't very easy for them to run the ball. But like LaShawn McCoy was down to like less than 25%. Darrell Williams was in the same boat but didn't get a touch. Like I think he out carried LaShawn McCoy 9-2. Like they're clearly booting him up as like not even a 1A to 1B with LaShawn McCoy. Like he is their lead back, and LaShawn McCoy is like a good breather back. But yeah, like I actually I am written up right now in my tournament plays for Die Hard. So I love that play. One of my favorite running back plays on the slate in terms of tournaments. And I think you can run him back with Hopkins for like the fade Will Fuller and then go with the running game in Kansas City for a very unique stack of this game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. I love this Kansas City -4 line if we get word that all these guys are healthy because they'll smash this team.
Yeah, let's hop into our next game. Oh, boy, we have Washington versus Miami. Washington, 3.5 points on the road kind of surprises me. 41-point total. I mean, you can play Preston Williams. Like, you could play Terry McLaurin, but I think he got like, I don't know, he might be like 6K or something.
He did step significantly.
So I'm not playing anything this game.
See, I think a lot of people are going to have a much different take. I think a lot of people are going to try to make Kenny and Drake work, which sounds disgusting.
I know. Why would you?
Why would you do that? Preston Williams or Devontae Parker. Like I'd prefer Preston Williams at 4,100. On the other side, like Adrian Peterson at 4,500, people are going to try to make work. I could see that. That sounds awful. Jeremy Sprinkle 2,600 would probably be my favorite play on the Washington side if Vernon Davis were to sit. But like, yeah, this is a game that I think people are like trying to like pull value from because guys are so cheap, and it just isn't something like that I'd be willing to do myself, but I get why they're trying to do it, I guess, because both of these teams could just stop playing defense.
Yeah, I get that, but I just think like defense isn't awfully predictive of offensive performance. Like your offensive performance is mostly derived on your offense, and like your offenses here are Josh Rosen and Case Keenum, like two like truly below average bad quarterbacks with bad weapons. Like I don't know, I don't get why you'd play like anything on these awful offenses when there are so many good games to play with decent values. Like this next game coming up, there's actually some values I really like. So I'm not playing any of this game, and I'm fine with like whatever happens.
Yeah, I play more lineups, and I probably don't know if I'd have too much exposure either. So,
all right, let's hop into our next game: San Francisco versus the Rams. And San Francisco looks legit. The Rams kind of regressing from last season, but still a very quality team. They're 3.5-point favorites at home with a 50.5-point total. The third highest total on the slate, but really it's Kansas City versus Houston, and then basically it might as well be a tie between this game and then the next one we'll talk about, Atlanta, Arizona. Like Cooper Kupp. Actually, I think Cooper Kupp should be the highest priced receiver on the slate. Like he's getting more volume than almost any other receiver. And when you look at like expected points volume, accounting for like basically touchdown equity based on line of scrimmage, he is the number one receiver, I believe. So yeah, I don't know. He's leading the league in targets. It's on one of the most efficient offenses. I think he's still like he should be pushing up 8K at this point, especially with Brandon Cooks questionable, might not play. But like even regardless, it hasn't mattered.
Yeah, I think he's too cheap too. I think he should be around like 7,600, 7,500. And he's 71. So, yeah, I like Cup. I think Cup's like, if Cooks is out, like just plug Cup. I think
100%.
probably plug him anyways. The difficult thing here is trying to identify where usage is going to go on the San Francisco side, both between running backs and wide receivers, and then on the Rams side between their running backs. Like we know where a good concentrated amount of usage is going to go within this game, being the Rams passing attack and through Cooper. But like identifying the other spots is going to be really good for tournaments because it's a really good game to stack up. Although I do see it maybe going under the 50.5, even though it's moved a significant 2.5 points at this point. I'm pretty positive. Yeah, I don't know. Like, do you have any clarity on like the San Francisco side? I'm not really too read up.
No, especially it's difficult because they've hardly played in any competitive games. Like we haven't seen, as far as I remember, really any.
They're really good. Kyle
Dvorchak
really good. They were my pick to beat. They were the best futures bet on the board this year, and I thought that last year. Like I was ready. I personally like San Francisco to come out of. Everyone's talking about like, oh, the team isn't going to go worst to first this year, and I think San Francisco's that team. I really like San Francisco. I feel like it's not like they haven't played anyone. They haven't played anyone, but it doesn't matter because the system is just so good. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I'm saying it's just hard to get a read. Like we haven't seen them have to pass like 40 times a game. Like in that large sample, it would be easy to suss out like their market shares. We have a small sample of just their passing game because they played a sort of close one with Pittsburgh, but I think they had a lead early. They destroyed the Bengals, destroyed Tampa Bay, destroyed the Browns. Like it's like these aren't the games we can expect heading forward. They're different games than the Rams. This is a legitimately good team.
Yeah, but they beat the Rams at home though.
I don't know. They crushed. All I'm saying is they crushed Tampa Bay, and our prior on Los Angeles is that Los Angeles is still very good.
No, the Rams are really good. San Francisco is really good. It's not about that though. We're trying to pick players. Like George Kittle would be the guy at 5,200 that I think you'd want to have exposure to. That's pretty obvious. Gerald Everett's another guy at 3,600, but he's another tight end in this game. Gerald Everett could, if Cooks is out, like that's pretty much you might be going that way in cash games. Yeah, on the outside of these San Fran receivers, like it's pretty much like maybe Deebo Samuel. He let a lot of people down Monday night. And then on the running back side, like I don't have a clue.
San Francisco is legit one of the better teams in the NFL. It's just hard to gauge them with like the blowouts they've had. It's been easy for them to run. If they actually have to pass a lot, I have no clue who it'll be. Marquise Goodwin, Deebo Samuel. Right now, all of their receivers are sitting at 15% or lower target share. Honestly, at this point, I'm just inclined to go George Kittle and fade the rest of them. One thing we have to talk about, Todd Gurley did not practice today with a thigh injury. They've already obviously limited his work in some capacity. If he doesn't play, I assume like Malcolm Brown is just the lock of all locks of all locks.
Yeah, Malcolm Brown becomes a really good play.
Yeah, like he's just a must-have in cash. And like what we know about these running backs is that like chalk low-priced running backs, like they hit so more often than they're actually owned. Like they're pretty highly owned. They hit at such an incredibly high rate. Like I'd be fine with, like I would be playing him 100% in tournaments too. Like so, just like a contingency. If you tune in Sunday morning 9 a.m. to this show, that'll be something we should have clarity on at that point. I guess
we'll have a much better read on all these situations come Sunday night.
That's kind of one of the two situations. The next one we'll talk about in this next game that really will like shape the way we play the slate. The next one, Atlanta versus the Cardinals. Cardinals are 2.5 point favorites or 2.5 point dogs at home, which kind of surprises me. Atlanta's pretty awful, but a 51 point total. For me, I don't know what to do with anyone outside of Larry Fitzgerald on the Cardinals. Like it seems like they rotate who they're playing without Christian Kirk every single week. Like they rotated their third every single week with Damiere Byrd unhealthy. Now Christian Kirk unhealthy. I don't know what to do with them. David Johnson, if he plays, I'm firing up against like the pass funnel defense for running backs. If he doesn't play, Chase Edmonds is like just like Malcolm Brown, the lock of all locks, maybe even more so in my opinion. Because I could see Darrell Henderson actually eating into some of Malcolm Brown's work, given that what they invested in him. Nobody's going to touch Chase Edmonds' work if David Johnson doesn't play. I think Kyler's. I think I got to check his FanDuel price. His DK price has been like just wildly out of proportion with what he's actually produced, especially like not flashing much of a ceiling. Probably not playing him there. Depending on his FanDuel price, though, I could be getting decent exposure to him there.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, there's Arizona's secondary receiver situation is another situation that we don't have much clarity on. Larry Fitzgerald at 6,100, I think, is a strong play. If David Johnson sits, Edmonds becomes another play that's pretty much cash game viable, maybe a free square at that point. Cardinals defense, 1,900. This is another one of those spots. I really like the Cardinals defense. Matt Ryan turns the ball over a good amount. Well, he has this year at least. So I don't mind the Cardinals defense at 1,900 with how fast this game should play. Matt Ryan being on the road. I don't mind that for cash, really. And on the Atlanta side, like Austin Hooper, I think is a great play. Streaming tight ends versus Arizona. I like that he would be my favorite play. I know Julio Jones is obviously always in place, but out of the secondary guys, like I prefer Hooper to Ridley and stuff like that. And
yeah, I agree. Much prefer Hooper to Ridley. Like if you had any interest in playing Sanu, I'd obviously play him over Sanu. Yeah, I think Hooper is one of the better tight end plays if you're paying up. And honestly, outside of Everett, who I think is one of the, especially if Brandon Cooks doesn't play, is like the only pay down candidate for me right now. I think Hooper is a great play. We finally got the Arizona funnel tight end narrative not hit, but I do think generally like the slot routes and the low ADOT routes are successful against them. That's what I expect to see from Hooper. So maybe we don't get like Hooper stone cold lock week like we saw with like Will Dissly 2 weeks ago or whatever. At least like he won't have the highest ownership of the slate. So I love Hooper like in tournaments. I don't think he'll fit in my cash flow, but I'm not entirely sure yet. And yeah, I can't stress enough. Chase Edmonds is the free square should David Johnson not play.
Is he more of a free square if Gurley and David Johnson were to sit? I don't even know if this is possible at this point, but who would you prefer, Malcolm Brown or Edmonds? Did you already?
Edmonds. I touched on it, but like I'll make it clear, probably Edmonds.
Okay.
I mean, I like, is there a problem with working them both in?
No, then you're getting both of them in, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to like, yeah.
Yeah, and then it allows you to pay up at quarterback, I assume, which I think there's obviously, like, I have no problem trying to get up to like Lamar Jackson or Mahomes or whomever. Quarterback, like I don't mind paying up this week because I think there's not a ton of value below, and the same can be said for tight end outside of Everett. So I think like it's reasonable to like play both of them, pay up for receiver, and just like I would be shocked if they both didn't at least have solid performances, if not like smash value. So I'd be playing both of them almost certainly because I think they're both pretty much like locks.
Yeah.
And this is all like we'll talk about this Sunday morning. This is all only in the events of Todd Gurley and David Johnson not playing, to be clear. Next game we have up. This one is another ugly one. Tennessee versus the Broncos. Broncos are 2.5-point favorites at home. 39-point total has come down 1 point since opening. I don't know. I have no interest in this game. I'm not interested in playing games with super low totals, especially like there's some work I've been looking at showing like the difference between a 25-point total or 25-point implied team total and a 20 is obviously just 5 points mathematically, but your ceiling range of outcomes is so incredibly capped, like more so than just the, what is that, like a 25% increase. Like your ceiling range of outcomes like increases essentially exponentially when your implied team total goes up. So like I just don't see any way these teams are scoring like more than 2 touchdowns each.
Yeah, you went out there. What were we talking about again? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that like I'm not really interested in playing teams with like implied totals of like Titans versus Broncos, 20.75 and 18.25. Like even if the over hits, it's not an awfully interesting game. And your ceiling as a team for like total points, if you have a 25-point total, is so much more than like the 25% increase you would get from having a 20-point total. Like it increases exponentially, essentially. So yeah, I'm not really interested in playing any of these guys. Like Cortland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders are fine plays based on their volume. But Tennessee's got a solid defense, and the Broncos and Tennessee both want to run slow-paced run games. So yeah, I'm probably not
having a miserable game. Sutton would be the one for me too, and that's pretty much it. But I don't even think I'd play him.
Awesome. I don't care to talk about this game. So boring. We have a much more interesting game right now. Dallas versus the Jets. Jets are 7.5-point dogs. There's a 44-point total. It's come down a point since opening, but like the Jets are so incredibly underpriced, and it is hard to overstate just how much of an impact it is going to be getting Sam Darnold back under center as opposed to Luke Falk. The Jets, I'll pull it up, but they're averaging like less than 5 yards per attempt on their pass plays. Like that's like it's like running back levels. They're so bad. But with Sam Darnold, like even if he's not their savior, like the next great quarterback that like maybe Jets fans hope he'd be, the improvement you're going to get is literally going to be like a 30 to 40% improvement on your offensive production. So I think all the Jets having had like 3 or 4 down weeks are valuable plays. Where are you going with the Jets? Robbie Anderson, Jamison Crowder. Demaryius Thomas got 9 targets last week, still like 3,300. So there's a lot of options, and obviously Le'Veon Bell always in play. My guess is like not if you're going to have exposure, but just where it would be.
Yeah, so the Jets defense I think is a good play for tournaments at 1,500. On top of that, I like Robbie Anderson at 4K. Darnold if he's back. Le'Veon Bell seems like the cash game running back in this situation versus Dallas defense. They can't stop a nosebleed on the ground. And I don't know, on the Dallas side, like probably be back to Gallup, Cooper, Zeke's fine at 8,500. Like that would be just the regular guys. I'm not in love with Dak.
Yeah, I think he's fine, but there are better plays on the slate. Yeah, I don't know. It's really more of like I'm interested in this game in GPPs because I think one, you can make arguments for most games in GPPs, but I think the Jets are just going to be wildly underowned because of how bad they've been. Also, if you were wondering, Chris Herndon doesn't look like he's going to be playing this week. And even if he does, I wouldn't expect him to get like a full workload coming off of like not being active because of suspension. Now not getting I think he did not practice today. I'm like not interested in him at all, really. I think Robbie Anderson's a very good play. What's his price on DK?
4K.
Yeah, like he still like has the Robbie Anderson upside we saw last week. Definitely not in my cash game lineups. I think Bell is the only player viable for cash on this side of the ball for me until we at least get some sample of what this offense will look like with Sam Darnold. But yeah, I guess my final question is like, how comfortable are you with playing Bell in cash? Because I'm still not like awfully sold on him yet.
I just think he's going to see so much volume on the ground, and in the passing game, I think he's just fine for right now. That could change come like ownership projections, and if he's not going to be someone who's going to be very highly targeted in cash, then I'd probably go away from it. But I don't hate Bell. I don't hate the Jets D either. I think there are ways to get up to better players. So for the usage that he's going to see at 6,400, I definitely don't hate it.
Yeah, I have no problems with that. Like volume ends up being king at the end of the day. All right, this is with the bye weeks, that is the end of this already. Flying through this.
Yeah, it's only a 10 gamer. I noticed that earlier.
Yeah, it didn't even dawn on me. So I guess we do have some questions we can get to. Let's start here. Would you start Preston Williams over Calvin Ridley this week in PPR? Thanks. I'm not going to say that. I can't pronounce those types of things. So for me, it's pretty clearly Calvin Ridley. Like I guess, like I understand the volume argument, but like volume from Josh Rosen has to be like significantly discounted, and your upside with Ridley is so much more. Like we saw last season, his upside. This game has the second highest total on the slate right now against the awful Arizona defense. Like for me, it's Calvin Ridley. I guess like if you're doing like a mean or medium projection, maybe Preston Williams comes out higher, but like your ceiling is not very capped with Calvin Ridley, and I still think he has a fine projection in the game with a ton of scoring. Any take on this?
Yeah, so I think you're right with Ridley. It's a small slate, and it's one of the more paced up games in the slate, so I think Ridley's the right play. I think that Preston could see a good amount of targets from Rosen. Obviously, they had a good preseason rapport. So I guess – and we seen him target him 10 times in Dallas, and then 4 red zone targets. Like, yeah, he has the upside versus a Pats defense that isn't great. So I don't hate Preston Williams, but I think I just prefer Ridley.
All right, we have another question in the chat. Is Dak a good cash play? I mean, he's a fine cash play. His team's got a decent implied total, but I think there are significantly better plays if you're paying all the way up. Or just like I really think Gardner Minshew's a very, very viable cash play, more so than like Dak. Just pay down for him, especially if we don't get the running back chalk news that we're excited for throughout the week.
Yeah, I don't think Dak's going to be someone I'm going to consider in cash games this week. You're either going down or you're going up. I don't think you're going to Dak.
And just like that, we are done. These bye weeks, man, and I don't even think this is the most bye heavy week. That'll be in a few weeks. So little faster shows, but I think that sort of makes the slates a bit more interesting. At least like different style of games almost. Like you have to play them at least somewhat differently. At least think about them differently in that sense. So we're done. Let's get out of here.
So it seems like it just flew by.
It's actually just like weird. I'm at a loss for words how fast it goes because we have
we didn't talk much about that Tennessee game. Was like,
well, yeah, there's 2 games on the slate that I'm 100% comfortable with literally just writing off.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
It's really like an 8-game slate.
Yeah, no, that's legitimately a good way to honestly like. That's how I'm gonna view this slate, and I think that can give you an edge. Like there's I feel like you're just a stone cold fish if you play like Titans and Broncos.
Yeah, but people will. So
yeah, no, that's why I'm excited for this slate because I can just write off a handful of people playing these players. Yeah, I guess that's the end of it. So you can catch us on Sunday mornings 9 a.m. At that point, we should have solid news about the running back situations. That's kind of going to shape the way we play this slate. So for Bobby Gomes at Bobby Gomes DFS on Twitter, for myself at Kyle Tweets here, we will see you Sunday morning. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.